Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder when I head out for a walk and deliver an episode to you while I stroll around. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good morning, listeners. It is Tuesday, July 7th, and I'm talking to you for the first time in July. Can you believe it's already a week in? Yikes. Well, it's been an interesting few weeks trying to get a rhythm where I would take walks. It hasn't really worked out, obviously, as you've noticed, the slowdown in the podcast schedule. I'm still intending to continue for a while. I'm not sure how often, but I'm going to try to get out a bit more regularly now. If nothing else, there's a little part of my brain that really wants to do 100 episodes a year, and falling behind for a month means I need to pick up the pace a little bit. But again, the primary directive has to be I need to have fun doing it. And so if I don't feel like doing it, I'm not getting out. I would say one of the things, I think I mentioned this in the last episode, it just feels like I'm not playing as many games, which is not true. I am playing a lot of games. It's just almost all my games are with my family, which, as much as I love my family, means it's a much narrower window of game types than I play when I'm getting my regular game group week meetings in. So, have to see about getting back to Tabletop Simulator or those kinds of games, which takes just a bit more effort because it seems like the people who usually go to my Tuesday night game club have drifted away from being available and online to play games during that time. And so I need to make a bit more effort there. It is also the strange experience of trying to play games with other people while I'm in my house. It's the same reason working at home is really hard when everyone else is around, which we've all experienced in various ways now. So, all right, there ends the 2 minutes of moping. Well, like I said, it's the first episode of July, so it's time for the top of the stack. Welcome back. So, this month, June was a strange gaming month for me, even more strange than April and May, if you can believe it. Not sure why. Maybe settling into the rhythm of quarantine life has changed the gaming rhythm a bit. Could also be just we finally, they changed the level of restrictions a bit, and we now have the ability to go visit. So we went and visited both of our families, although carefully. And when we went through Wisconsin, we only stopped for gas. We brought all the food with us just because Wisconsin's not been doing a great job of social distancing as a group. But so it's been a weird month. I'll start off with my top of the stack report. Top of the stack this month, I had Founders of Gloomhaven, Robinson Crusoe, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and Queen's Architect. And I think for the first time since I started the top of the stack segment, I have a 0 out of 3. I did not play any of those games. Whew, that's not fun. That's not fun to get 0 out of 3. What a goose egg. Come on. What's funny is that I've often mentioned I stole the name Top of the Stack and the general idea from a podcast I genuinely loved, the much missed Podcast of Nonsensical Gamers. This was a podcast I listened to for a couple years, really enjoyed it. I think their last episode was sometime in 2018, so it's been a while since we've seen them. But they did a thing every month where I think they did 2 weeks, where they would do the same thing. They would have a top of the stack. They would just pick one game that they were trying to play before the next episode. And it was not uncommon, especially toward the end of the podcast, for all three of them to have not played their top of the stack game. Hopefully this does not signal something going on with me, but it does provide kind of a wake-up call that I need to think about what am I trying to get out of top of the stack, and do I need to change the practice? I'll let you know what I've decided to do for July at the end of this episode. So stay tuned, listener. All right, I know you're all eagerly champing at the bit for some stats, so here they are. My monthly stats for June: 55 plays of 37 games. So that is a significant drop in gameplay over my usual pace. Although my year total is still 422 plays of 153 different games. We had 5 Rattlebox play tests. My gaming, and that's probably an underestimate actually. My gaming partner Rob and I have been working on a roll and write, or we're calling it a reap and write, a write and reap game. That is pretty interesting. We've been playtesting that a couple times a week actually, so 5 is definitely an underestimate there. Collection size being reduced, that is not going well. I gained 2 games in June, although that was to be expected. It was a birthday month, but because I haven't really sold any games yet since the quarantine started, I haven't been reducing the game size, although I do have a fair stack of games waiting to sell. It would be interesting. I'm interested to hear, reader or listener, if you go to Board Game Geek Guild 3269 and let me know what you think about this. What do you think about calling a game removed from my collection if I've put it in the sell pile? I have a literal sell pile, a pile of games that I'm planning to sell or wanting to sell or trying to sell. Do you think it is intellectually dishonest to remove it from my collection once it's in the sell pile? That's an interesting question. Problem is that Board Game Geek does not have I guess they do have a available to sell tag that you can put on a game, which I could use and then unclick own, and then it would get removed from my own collection. I'm just curious. What do you think? If I've decided I'm selling a game and put it in the sale pile, is the game still in my collection until I sell it or get rid of it in some other way? Keen to hear your thoughts. Okay, my most played game in June was Gloomhaven with 12 plays. My most played online game was Clans of Caledonia. Now, the way I've mentioned before, the way I track online plays is that I mark a game as played when I finish it, which means that at the end of June I had several games going. I was in the middle of them, so they don't count as done. So really it means the game I finished most often in June was Clans of Caledonia. Okay, let's see. I already talked about my poor top of the stack performance. All right, so I have 3 first plays this month. We have Whistle Stop, which I talked about a little bit already in the previous episode. We have Forgotten Waters, which is a good, an interesting game. I talked about a little bit already, but I think the next episode I'll do is going to be a shooting from the hip, a more elaborate discussion of Forgotten Waters now that I've played it twice. And First Class, which is an interesting game from the same designer, I understand, as Russian Railroads, and you can definitely see the overlap in gameplay experience there. I'm playing that online with Chris Graves, hey Chris, and somebody else that he invited, as well as a game with him. The first play, especially in an online game, the first play is entirely experimental. I didn't really understand the value of the contracts. So the way this game plays, it's a card-based game where you have 2 trains that you're building, and you're taking cards from a market and use the cards to do things like add more more cars to your train, or upgrade the quality of those train cars, or add conductors to your train, which gives you points. The conductors work kind of like the rails in Russian Railroads. And then there's this secondary track that you can expand on, and the track gets you bonuses. So the further expanded your track is, the more bonuses you get. Unlike Russian Railroads, the scores compound. So a score that you get one round, then the next round you'll get a higher score, plus the score you got in the first round, and so on. The interesting part of the market is that the way the market works, there are 3 rows of cards. I'm trying to think if this is right. I'm trying to remember if this is how it worked for the 3-player game or not. It might be that there were more rows of cards in the 3-player game, but I'll talk about the 2-player because that's how I remember. In the 2-player game, there's 3 rows of cards. There's maybe 5 or 6 cards in each row. And once 2 cards have been taken out of the row, then that row, the whole rest of the row is discarded. So if you have 1 card in there you really want, you got to take that first. But often there's 1 card in multiple rows that you really want, and then if someone else has taken a card out of a row, then you the next time that card is taken out of that row, it goes away. Really interesting card selection mechanism that gives you lots of options, but also tortures you with missing out on the thing you wanted because you have to. It's good. I'm really enjoying playing with Chris, but I think like Russian Railroads, ultimately not going to end up a favorite of mine. I'm not sure why, and maybe if I were playing in person, I would enjoy it more. Maybe counting the score would give me a better sense of connection to it. But it is certainly enjoyable, and I'm really liking the manipulation. I'll certainly play it some more. If you like Russian Railroads or other online games, do drop me a line. We can start a game of First Class, and you can see if you like that one. That's it, though. 3 new games in June, which means that I've got 55 new-to-me games this month, or as of the last update. So well on my way to 100 new games in the year, though I think this is the first month where I've had fewer than 10. Well, that's not true. Certainly 3 is the low point. I did get to play one expansion this month. Among the other things that I got at my birthday, I picked up the Azul Crystal Mosaic expansion, mostly for the little plastic trays that they give you to help keep the tiles in order. But you also get you get an alternate board for Azul that's double-sided. So you basically get two additional boards that change the scoring and the setup just a little bit, which is nice because Azul gets a little samey, so to have some different boards give you a little bit different flavor without disrupting the core gameplay the way that Stained Glass of Sintra or Summer Palace change things dramatically. Summer Pavilion, excuse me. Those are the sequel Azul games, if you've forgotten. I did have some Out of the Dust plays this month. These are games, of course, that I haven't played in more than a year, and so getting them out means dusting them off and playing them. Kokoro, Avenue of the Kodama. I played a year and 9 months ago, but I played again in June. It was pretty good. As a flip and write, it is delightful. It's a puzzly little experience full of heartache because you're constantly trying to figure out how to plan your route, never knowing if you're going to get the thing you need to succeed. We played Transatlantic, which I last played a year ago and changed. Transatlantic is basically Concordia Light. It has all of the hand management and card purchasing things and amplifying points things without the map. So if you think about Concordia and take away the complication of having to buy people and move them around the map, all the other elements are there in one way or another. The delicious part of Concordia for me is the buying of cards that do things, but also the cards give you scoring opportunities, and using those cards to amplify your scoring. In Transatlantic, the scoring is not part of the cards you buy. It's not part of the playing cards you buy, but it is part of the ships you buy. And of course, it all creates an engine that feeds off each other. So in order to do well with your engine, you need to buy ships that make you plenty of money. But the ships also score based on this sort of complicated thing of how rare a ship's color is. So when you buy a ship of a particular color, then it scores at the end of the game based on how many ships of that color people didn't buy. And so there's an element of kind of going for the rare thing. I prefer the theme so much more than Concordia, and I really enjoy Transatlantic. When I played with my wife the last time, I did much better than she did, and I don't think she'll want to play it again for a while. But it would be a fun game to play with another group of people, and it's a bit easier to grok than Concordia, I think, and a little bit easier to keep track of what's going on. Also plays much faster, like 1 hour or less, which is really nice to be able to just have the Concordia experience without the sort of gigantic overhead. And then I did connect with a couple friends that I hadn't played with on Board Game Arena before, and we did some live play where we chatted on Discord and then played on Board Game Arena Live, and we played Quarto. Or I played a couple games of Quarto and a couple games of Potion Explosion, all of which were quite delightful. And we had a good time trying those ones out. It had been a while since I played Quarto, and it had been a year and 11 months, actually. Quarto is an excellent sort of bar game. It's a really simple system. There are 4... each player has a variety of shapes, and the shapes have qualities. They're either round or square, tall or short, cylindrical, round or square, tall or short, light or dark colored, and hollow or solid. And the idea of the game, and there's a game board with 16 spaces, and what you're supposed to do is get 4 in a row that share a characteristic. And the trick of the game is that you place a piece, and then you pick a piece for the other player to place. Then they place that piece you chose for them. Then they pick one for you. So the delicious manipulation of the game is that inevitably, when you lose, it's because you gave your opponent a piece they needed to win. It's a fun little game. It takes about 5 minutes to play. It looks really nice. It's a game I play somewhat regularly at Toggle, but I hadn't played it online before, but it works pretty well. If you wanted to give that a try, the Board Game Arena implementation is enjoyable. All right, our family 20 by 5 challenge is going slow. We've made very, very, very little progress on it this month. We played Lovelace and Babbage once, and that is the only game in the challenge that we advanced, which is a kind of a bummer. Lovelace and Babbage, of course, is a really interesting math game where you're basically speed arithmetic is the idea. You are trying to manipulate a math problem so that as you add and subtract and change around numbers, you end up hitting certain values, and then you score points based on the values you hit. Other than that, no progress on the family 20 by 20. It's been slow going. As I said, we're playing Gloomhaven a couple times a week, so that eats up a lot of the family gaming time. But we're having a lot of fun. I guess I could start giving Gloomhaven updates. The problem is, Gloomhaven is probably interesting to people who've played it, but I don't want to spoil anything. And if you don't play it, it would just be a boring part of the segment. So let me know if you want to hear more Gloomhaven talk. On my 52 game challenge, I've reached 30 out of my 52 games. I can't recall what I added. One game to my playlist, but Forgotten Waters is a game about water, and one of the elements of the 52 game challenge is playing games related to the 4 elements. So it was Forgotten Waters. On my leftovers list, I have completed Matainai. I think that was true last month too. I have not played Via Nebula at all. That's a game I need to bust out again if I want to get it finished. Not much progress on my Shelf of Opportunity. I bought 2 games, but I played them both, so it's holding even at 36 unplayed games. I'm going to try to do better on that in July. My expansion play is about the same. I played Crystal Mosaics, and I bought Crystal Mosaics, so we're still hovering at 32 unplayed expansions. And no new games in my top 50 challenge, so pretty even Steven, like I said. Well, so I had to think about what do I want to do for my top of the shelf for July. Do I go in and pick a bunch of different games I want to try? How do I handle it? And what I decided is, since I got 0 out of 3, is that I'm doing a complete redo. I'm redoing the whole month. I put all 4 games that were on the top of the stack in June back on the top of the stack in July, and I'm going to try to do better this month. So that means Founders of Gloomhaven is my main game. We've got the old Buffy the Vampire Slayer game from 2000, designed by Rob Daviau. We've got Queen's Architect as our revisited game. And Robinson Crusoe is the revisited game, meaning a game I've played before, but I want to go back and try again. And then Queen's Architect as the reattempt, the game that was previously on the top of the shelf that I'm trying again. Now that was true of all the games. That's true of all the games this month, because, oops. But really gonna give it give it an old college try. So there we are. Hopefully that was an enjoyable excursion for you and a nice welcome back to pick up and deliver. I'm going to try to be a bit more regular on my broadcasting here, but looking to hear from you. What have you been playing? What would you like to hear about? As I think about topics, that is a tricky part for this era. When I'm not playing as many games, when we can't get out and about, turns out finding topics to talk about is also tricky. So pop me a line over on Board Game Geek Guild 3269, and I hope to hear from you soon. Until next time, thanks for joining me. I hope your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.